What is acid rain?
So as far as I understand, acid rain is rain or precipitation coming over from the Midwest it's carrying pollutants from coal burning factories, so SOxes and NOxes as they call them.
So acid rain is when you get carbon dioxide coming into the air, changing the chemistry of the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. And then when the rain comes, it kind of clings to the carbon molecules and then comes down as rain. And it's acidic because of the way that the various chemicals of water and carbon dioxide bond.
What caused acid rain to appear in the Adirondacks?
We're downwind of most of the country, and industrial emissions from coal-fired power plants and factories and cars and other vehicles, all of those acidify the rain. And the wind blows here, hits the mountains, and drops rain and snow, and that's why there's so much here.
Most of the acid rain in the Adirondacks actually comes from fossil fuel combustion and coal-fired power plants in the Midwestern U.S. So when you combust coal, all kinds of stuff comes out of it, and a couple of things that come out are nitric and sulfuric acid. Goes up in the upper atmosphere, it gets caught up in basically the prevailing winds, which tend to be from the southwest to the northeast. So it's coming up here, and some of it drops down. So it's basically being long distance transport.
If you know, when did acid rain become public in the Adirondacks?
Oh, so I was a college student here at 75 to 77 for forestry, and it was really hot here at that time. We talked about it all the time in class. You could physically see the destruction of the forest at that time, and you knew it was acid rain. You could just see the discoloration of the needles on the trees, and so it was really hot in the news then. Whether it was in the news before then or not, probably. I mean, the Clean Air Act happened in, 1973 or something, so, that was in part spurred on by some of the damage that was being done in things like acid rain.
It was a really popular, you could say, environmental issue in the 1970s, 1980s. It was really because a lot of the lakes were sterilized, trees were starting to die, and it was a big environmental issue. And one of the good things about it was people were less politically polarized back then, so there was a lot more cooperation to fix it, and it so far seems to be working.
How does acid rain affect the environment in the Adirondacks?
So acid rain has improved greatly since I was a student here 40 years ago. I can see differences in the forests, and I've read a couple articles just interested. When I moved back up here 3 years ago, I was like, why doesn't anybody talk about acid rain anymore? And then realized that in part it's because it has gotten better, so things like the Clean Air Act and regulations on clean air. But how it impacts us is it is a real stressor on the ecology, along with climate change and all these other issues. Any kind of particulates, any kind of pollution in the air, creating more stress on trees when we already have so much stress is still a problem.
One of the things the acid rain does is it acidifies the lakes. And another thing it does is it corrodes the soil. So aluminum and other toxic things come out of the soil, and they get in the plants and also in the lakes. So those are two of the big things. They can then also make mercury come out of the sediments sometimes too, and things like that. If it gets too acidic, fish can't live. And if too much of the aluminum comes into the lake, then it damages their gills and they suffocate.
What are some solutions, if any?
Well, the big one has been happening. So the Clean Air Act, which was enacted in 1970, so pollution controls have been put on the stacks of power plants. Lower emissions for vehicles have been, because vehicles generate acid rain too because they burn fossil fuels. So with the advent of the Clean Air Act, putting scrubbers on stacks, we've seen a marked decline in acid deposition over the decades. We've seen a recovery from that. We've seen a recovery of our ecosystems to a certain point. So that's one thing, is regulation to control the source. The other thing, in lakes, they've actually been doing liming, so increasing, kind of restoring the pH or the acidity back a little bit higher than what it was, and making the environment more healthy, more conducive to the fishery population. So liming is big. It's been going on for, in quite a few lakes since the 80s, and of course, and reducing the input. Those are the two big things, and really those are it, right? And continuing to increase fuel efficiency, decrease our reliance on fossil fuels, those kinds of things.
What is acid rain?
Acid rain is rain that is infused. I got nervous.
What is acid rain?
Acid rain is rain that is unusually acidic by sulfuric or nitric acid, and it gets into the lakes and changes the pH in the lakes, so it's unsafe for fish and wildlife.
If you have any solutions, what are they?
One solution would be to do more cleansing of the smoke coming out of the smokestacks when you're burning coal, or just to not burn coal and look for other alternative energy sources.